do. What do I even call this? Do I just say the emotional incest? Hello, emotional incest.
We're going to talk about
Hello.
something that's dirty.
Hey everybody, I just wanted to introduce you to my cousin. Twice removed.
Twice removed.
We're going to talk today about emotional incest.
So won't you sit back, relax next to the campfire, grab your little mocha or your little s'more, and enjoy the weird show. The dirty, dark show. It's dirty and dark. It's a dirty, dark.
Seriously. Yeah, so I don't know how I'll intro, but...
We are excited to talk.
Okay, I've got it. Let's do it. This is good. Speaking of... Whew, okay. Let's start this. Ding. Hey everybody, welcome to the Shrink Think podcast. I am normally excited. I was excited, and then I started talking about this topic, and I'm like, now I'm a little confused and concerned. So maybe I'll get excited somewhere during the episode. And now that I say that, I'm like, maybe I don't want to be excited considering the topic. Because if I did, what does that say about me? It's a little bit weird. So yeah, this is Nathan's brainchild. As I'm sure once you hear it, you're like, of course it is. You'll be like, of course Nathan came up with this.
I'm not exactly sure how I feel about that right now. I'm not taking that compliment.
You know it's true. So the topic for today is emotional incest. Nathan, take it away. You're the expert on this subject.
Wouldn't you wish in the background that there's a bunch of clapping in the background, you know? Anyways, like when you said
or
that.
like crickets, emotional incest. Whatever that
Well, that's what the norm is. And see, it's happening right now. No, just kidding. I'm bringing this up actually because I was working with a person who actually hadn't seen or talked to in quite a long time, and completely random. They texted me and said, "Hey, I want to come back in, blah blah." But also, I listen to your podcast all the time. I'm like, "Oh, that's kind of cool," you know. Like, and I mean,
of course you can come back in.
Right?
What spot would you like?
Well, now you can.
You pick. Wait, how many episodes have you listened to? Oh, all of them. Whatever spot you want.
Exactly. And they were like, by the way, you guys haven't talked about anything like emotional incest, and I'm like, it sounds like, man, that's kind of, it sounds so gross.
You texted back, do you know why?
Doesn't it sound like that's not something that we put in a title? But part of the reason, I think that the entire reason why this person was bringing up is because she was coming from the perspective of it was such a big deal to her. Like, and honestly, how it came up in session, I'll never forget it. It was very simple. It was like, you know, well, you're not, it sounds like your mom expects you to not only parent your brother, but parent her. Like, you are been put in a position where you have to make her be okay, and you also have to discipline your brother.
Which is actually not that specific dynamic, but you know, I think we've talked before about situations where if you grew up as a child, which everybody did,
except for don't say everybody. There's always a percentage.
Somebody out there that did not.
Statistics.
If you grew up as a child and you were put in the position to be the parent for your parents, that's called parentification. That's unfortunately a really common dynamic. But then there's this other dynamic that's happening as well, where not only did you have the parent role with your parent, but you also had some sort of a parent or a comforter, protector, whatever role for someone else. Like in this case, it was a sibling. It may be something for the other parent, or maybe it was for a neighbor. But oftentimes, I think it is within the nuclear family there. So you've got these two roles that are happening. That's like, I'm not able to just be a child. I have to do these two roles. That is like the emotional incest that's happening in the family.
It's a little beyond roles in the sense that you are taking care of the person's emotional state. So think of it like the addition would be, she was essentially Like the same way that a husband and wife, let's take that example, would get together and decide how to discipline their child, and they would have an emotional conversation about it. That's what this mom is coming to her daughter to do to her younger brother. It would be the exact same conversation. There's no editing.
Hey, little Johnny. Hey, so how do you think we should discipline your sister? You know, like, she behaved this way. What do you think the best idea to do? Oh, you're only 11? What do other kids in your school do?
Right. Yeah. So and that's true. Like, it's this idea. Typically, the parent is emotionally needy. They feel alone. They're not getting their needs met, so they're trying to get their emotional needs met through the child. Now, this can there's this entire thing around this whole idea of emotional needs. But if you think about it, it's this idea of romantic, like with a romantic partner. So my point of saying that is you could also have a sibling to sibling scenario that's more emotionally incestuous, because it has more to do with, like, it's romanticized a bit.
Or like what I hear is like that romantic partner thing is like you're on the same peer level. There's not like a level up or level down. Level up would be a parent, or a level below would be now that person was the parent, and if you're the level down, you're the child. It's peer to peer, so on the same level.
Like codependency, like on steroids. Yeah, back and forth. I actually took I looked, I'm like, there's got to be somebody out there that's written like the 25,000 signs of incest, emotional incest, and I found something, and these are good. I'm not going to say them all, but so from the parent, relying on the child for comfort and support, requesting advice from the child, invading the child's privacy, violating the child's boundaries, treats the child like a romantic or sexual partner, and that's what we were just talking about. Expects the child to compliment or praise them, which I feel like that is kind of one of those telltale situations. It's like, because it puts the kid in the position of it's not just parentifying, because that's not a parent type of thing. It's more like you're getting a whatever. It's more like, make me feel a certain way because I'm so needy.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I've seen this in like people that do things on where I'm placing it was like American Ninja Warrior. I used to watch this show, and parents would do things and like, oh, I just want to make my kid proud. I want my kid to be proud of me or whatever, and that always bothered me, because it's like, why do you want your child to be proud of you? It should be the other way around. You should be making your child feel proud. You want them to look up to you, and for you to give them the affirmations so that they can be complete in themselves, rather than the other way around.
Right. So yeah, it's kind of this is a large subject. There are quite a few pathways of this, and there's a variance to, like, maybe a better word is spectrum, to how this happens. Because go ahead.
So I guess my question then is just to guide this episode, like, what is our goal? What are we accomplishing? What do we want our listeners to take away from this episode specifically? If there are a lot of branches to it, which one are we going to focus on?
Yeah, I think overall, we're not going to be able to go into the depth of all of the, quite frankly, the tragedy of some of this. But what we could do for some of you folks out there, well, there's twofold. One, if we highlight this, I think from an awareness standpoint, I think some people can pursue some personal therapy with this and realize, like, that this might be going on and get into the depths of stuff. And I think there's another level, which is probably more this podcast speed, in the sense of, it's like a 23-minute episode, that can help people that are maybe not attributing the fact that some of the anxiety that they have in their own personal relationships has nothing to do with their own personal relationships, and it has more to do with what they're used to experiencing growing up and the power position that they were in simple shifts. Like this other lady that I was kind of talking about, it was she was kind of ready to hear it. I mean, it was like, what's happening? And in the conflict that she was having with her mom, I mean, one of the simple things that you do to get out of this is you need to begin to set boundaries. It's really simple. It will feel like you're cutting the parent off essentially. But what you're essentially doing is you're just not allowing them into your life without permission anymore. Like you just are, it's like a guillotine comes down. And also I think you have to be kind of ready for that. Meaning like with this person, that you get to where you're like angry, irritable, whatever's going on, something's happening. And there are times in your life, I think, when it's easier to set the boundaries and move forward. And that's kind of what I'm thinking in my mind.
So when I hear that, as a sort of a metaphor, an image here, it would be like growing up, being an adult, still living in your parents' home in your childhood bedroom. And you have to like still keep your door open so mom or dad can come in anytime. You're like, hey, what's happening? You're like, I just, I got home from work and I'm tired and I just need my own space. Oh, honey, do you want to tell me about it? And it's like, no, I don't. It's like, you're an adult, you're trying to have your own space, but as an adult living in your parents' home, and particularly where this parent is invading your space or privacy or emotional space, you just need to get away. So the boundaries you're describing would be, I'm moving out to have my own space, my own house, let's say 2 miles away or whatever, and I'm now a distance away. I have my own room, my own house, my own locks, all that kind of stuff, and you cannot, as a parent, invade my space, right? It's not saying, you're not saying necessarily like you can never come in or you have no access to me. It's that you are now in your space, in your house. I'm no longer there. I'm in my own space, and you have to be invited in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. To put it simply, the way that you grew up when it comes to this idea of emotional incest is that there was no boundaries. Think of how anxiety provoking that is, to where the relationship doesn't really have much structure. Like you're a kid, but you're also an adult, but you're also the partner, and you know as much about your mom or dad as your dad or mom does about the person. Like you hear about their sexual life. Like, where do you stop? I mean, how do you form identity?
Yeah, it's one thing to share something. I'm thinking about like clients that have talked about knowing their families, their parents' financial situation, and on some level, as kids, they kind of knew, like we didn't have any money, or, it was always a struggle. Dad lost his job, or mom was working 3 jobs, or whatever the case was. They kind of had some idea that there was a struggle. But when that information is given too freely and emotionally, it's sort of put on the child where they now have to carry some of the weight of that responsibility. Like, you need to be strong for me, or if I'm the parent and I'm talking to you, the kid, I'm essentially saying, hey, this is a heavy burden. Like, we can't do this. I'm stressed out. Like, I need you to know so that you can carry it with me, kind of a thing. That's completely inappropriate. It's okay for you to know, if you're a parent and you're telling your children, like, hey, we're strapped right now. We really got to save. Don't worry about it. Like, there's nothing for you to worry about. You can still be a kid and blah, blah, all those kinds of things. You're creating a boundary for your child and letting them know what they do not need to take on, because we as the parents have got it. We're
Right.
handling it, and you don't need to take that on. Now, some kids might still worry on some level, but that kind of a statement of boundaries coming from the parent does carry a tremendous amount of weight, and that's really important for you to communicate. So that's the difference, I think, between
Right.
like a healthy and then this emotionally incestuous version.
Right. And in that way, so if you're a person who needs to enter into recovery with this, the first thing you do is start considering boundaries. The other thing that you do is consider that you probably don't know your needs. Your needs have actually never really mattered, because the needs of your parents were more important than yours. And that's how you looked at it, because from your perspective, you were fine. You were doing whatever you were doing. You were going to go play outside, or you're going to do whatever. But your mom or your dad was not okay. And so now you're in a conversation to make sure that they are okay, so you can keep playing.
So your mind, your strategies that you're developing are geared outward, away from you and your feelings and your needs, onto your parent, those of your parent. So you're thinking about, worrying about, strategizing around how I can see, notice, react to, respond to, take care of the other person. So your orientation becomes outward toward the other person, and you don't even realize that that's happening. But in so doing, you lose connection with and touch with and awareness of this ability to see and monitor your own self.
Right. In some ways, using this other example, and by the way, for those of you that are cringed out that I'm saying like this lady and all these details, I have changed so many details right now. I'm trying to keep my story straight. This is a fictitious person at this point, just so you know. But part of the catalyst for this was she was trying to figure out, why is she so anxious about XYZ? And then on top of it, her mom was like, you need to talk to your brother about blah, 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 and decide the discipline, like literally if he was going to be grounded or not, that type of an idea. And I was like, what? Wait, what? And it was so normal for her that it was like, and so when I challenged it, she was like, I knew it. I knew that was dumb. Like, but she never had permission to let it be done.
It's like this little voice probably in her that was like, or this little part of her that was like, you know, annoyed or in pain, but it's like you have to stuff it and shove it way down. And then when somebody like you know, a professional comes along and validates, it's like it can now scream and be like, I knew it, you know?
Right.
Like I did have
it's
a place.
the weight.
Yeah.
Carrying the weight.
Yeah.
Like you knew that you weren't probably supposed to be carrying that. You don't want to carry that. You hate carrying that. And then I say, why are you carrying that? Like what's how, what? and then it's like, drop it. Thank you. And for her, it was as simple as like, I don't know what you're going to decide, Mom. Do what you're going to do. He's not my son. The end.
And that feels like abandonment and betrayal.
Yeah, like you're somehow not doing your job. But there comes a place when you no longer care.
And yes, and let me just say, it feels like you're not doing your job, but I would want to say, and that's true, you're not doing their job. The correction
Right.
is you're now no longer doing their job for them. It was never your job. It is not your job. It should have been their job all along, and you were doing it for them. And now by not doing it, you're like, I'm not going to do this, and I don't have to. I'm not even getting paid for this. Right? That's not even my position. Right? It's why am I coming to work and working on my computer? Then when everybody leaves, I close up my laptop and I go around and I empty the trashes and I dust everyone's office and I'm cleaning the toilets. I'm like, wait a minute, have I been the janitor too? I'm not even getting paid for that.
Well, and that's a part of this too, right? Because that's where I'm saying you have to begin. You've never also probably taken your needs that serious. You're probably a person that you don't really understand, or you probably listening to this podcast have been prompted to think about boundaries and that kind of thing before, and maybe you're a person that considers that and has been working on them. This gives you a very specific way to attack that, because it's like, wait, this is why I don't do this.
Yeah, and I will add too, I think a lot of people that are in this position end up over-functioning. And so if that's you, you might be thinking, oh, well, I'm successful or I'm capable. I can do so many things. This isn't me. And so we're not saying that you're helpless or you're weak. Actually, a lot of these people are very strong. They over-function. And so scaling it back means not doing certain things so that you have more energy and time and space for your own self and your own needs. So you might be very successful, but you're also incredibly exhausted.
Yes, and some of that scaling back, if that's you, will feel like you're somehow, like you're going to be judged. People are going to look at you different. They're going to be like, what are you doing? Like you're all like you're kind of a needy, like why you have all these needs, like you're supposed to not do. You're not going to go hang out with me because you're taking time for yourself, you know, or whatever it happens.
Why are you not taking out my trash anymore? How come the bathrooms are dirty? You didn't clean them.
Yeah.
Wait, you want to like go home at 5? What? You want to take PTO, a vacation? What?
Yeah, and I would say that there is an element to this that if this is resonating with you, where you're like, man, I really did quite a bit of that. I was like a second parent. You probably should go to therapy and start to try to understand like how the automatic, because we can't observe ourselves. So the fact that it's resonating means like, well, you probably, it may be a little worse than you think, in the sense that you don't know who you are as well as you think you do. You're running on some autopilot stuff because you have been trained to be who your parent needed you to be, which denied who you are.
I see this all the time where clients will come in and they will describe these kinds of scenarios, and they will always talk outwardly about other people and other scenarios. And I'll say, wow, that happened. How did you feel when that happened? And the response is kind of like, well, they shouldn't have done this, and that wasn't supposed to happen, and I just wish they would have, and I'll stop them and say, that's not what I asked. I said, what emotions were you feeling? That's the orientation that people have a very difficult time being in and seeing, that therapy will help them to learn and to discover. And that's just, shallow, deep question. Underneath that are some even deeper feelings of resentment or anger about all the stuff that had happened. So I also want to say going to therapy is helpful in getting some of this awareness, but also in helping you to see those patterns that happened, but not to stay there in the past, but to see how those patterns were patterned into you that you're now still living out behaviorally, emotionally in your life currently, so that you can change them right now. Therapy should be something that you can do something with right now and make some changes about, not just to rehash old patterns.
There's I know we're heading for home here. I just want to say a couple more things. One is that some of the signs of this or some of the results of this is having difficulty in your intimate relationships. Of course that makes sense, right? But think of it in terms of you are with your partner and you either A, are not speaking your needs to them because we've already talked about you really don't know what those are.
But you think you are.
Or B, you are avoiding them. They are trying to be close to you and you can't tolerate it. Like you just don't like it. Because to you, what that means is you are going to be used. That's not what they are doing, but it will feel like that's what's happening. And you may even be reframing it and telling them that's what they're doing, and they're not doing it. So
right, when the other person is saying like, hey, like, can we have a conversation? I miss you. And you're like, wait, what do you need from me? Why are you like, I've been here for you. Like, I'm sus now. It's like, I just want to be close to you. For what reason? Because I love you.
How close?
Yeah.
Why are you behind me? I'm not behind you. Anyway, you might have a love-hate relationship with your parents. That's kind of another sign. And low self-esteem. So this goes, quite frankly, worse and deeper on the spectrum than we've talked about today. But I think that's a good place to just kind of leave it and allow you to kind of think through and marinate in this idea of like where your anxiety and relationship is coming from. Could be literally the role that you played and the identity that you did not get to grow up in for yourself because of just your family of origin.
That was exciting.
Yeah, get out of the deep and dark. Have a great day.
Whew. Yeah, that was heavy.
It was.
Dang. I don't know how much. I'm like, how much are people going to listen to that? Like, they'll turn it off and be like, I feel like I need a shower.
Well, it might be. I think that's one that